Hey church girl, welcome to Church Girl Gang, a podcast where we get to talk about life, living for Jesus, and everything in between, and how that affects us in the here and now. My name is Kenzie, and I'll be your host, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation with you. Hey church girl, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us today for another episode of Church Girl Gang. Just a reminder, my name is Kenzie and I am your host, and today we are going to be having a conversation with my good friend Makayla, but before we get into that, I do want to give you a quick warning. Mom and Dad, if you have any kiddos in the car with you today, we are going to be talking about godly, biblical, holy things, but we are going to be talking about the conversation of purity. And so that is up to you today, whether you want your kiddos to be in on that conversation, but just a forewarning there. And I also want to remind you guys that we did a giveaway online this past week for these sweet Church Girl Gang pins. They're awesome. And so if you participated in that, you were entered into a drawing, and I'm going to be announcing the winners at the end of this podcast, so stay tuned for that. But with that being said, let's get right into our conversation with Makayla. All right, and we are back. We are here with my good friend, Makayla. Makayla and I have known each other for quite a few years now, and one of my favorite things about Makayla is that she has an adventurous heart and adventurous spirit, and I love following her journeys everywhere that she goes. She also has a beautiful heart for Christ, and she is a longtime church girl. Is that right, Makayla?
Yes.
Yeah.
PK, pastor's kid.
Pastor's kid. How long have you guys been doing church as a family?
Well, it's been 11 years since my dad started his own church, but ever since I was probably 3, we've all been in ministry together. So.
Wow. So that is a long time.
Yes.
And we've definitely, you and I, we've been on similar journeys, just as church planners kids as well, and know the late nights, the early mornings, the everything in between, long weekends. But it's been good. It's been good. Has it been good for you?
Yeah, I love it.
You love it? So good.
I do.
Well, recently you took a step out of that life. Well, you never really leave it, but and you took a move to Nashville. Is that right? How is that?
Yes, it's amazing. The food here is not good for me, but so good for me at the same time. The hot chicken, and we had hot chicken places in Austin, but it just hits different when you're in Nashville.
Absolutely, I agree. I guess I should have said that too. We're both Austin natives, you and I. Yes. So we know that life.
And Enneagram 7, so you should totally come visit, and we would have a blast, honestly.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, for real. Pack your bags.
Pack my bags. That's so fun. So the hot chicken is great. What else is great about Nashville?
Yes. Oh, man, everybody that you talk to is in the music industry somehow. I thought that was probably just like a stigma or something, but literally everybody that you talk to, they're like, oh, yeah, I manage this artist, or, oh, yeah, I'm a songwriter or whatever. And it's so cool because I've realized when somebody asks you what your dreams are or whatever, if you say that you're pursuing music, it's not weird to them here. Like, they're just like, oh, yeah, great. Yeah, same, And so it's so cool. I'm like, wait, nobody doubts music dreams here? Because in a way, I guess I thought of it like, when I go to Nashville, or if I say, yeah, I'm a singer or whatever, people would be like, yeah, everybody comes here to do that, know? But it's cool to be taken seriously when you say that you want to do music. So, yeah, we love this city. It's beautiful.
That's awesome. Have you done any sightseeing or?
I'm only thinking of restaurants right now, which is so bad.
That's sightseeing to me. That's it. That's enough sights.
It's because Lawrence he's such a foodie, and he's a bad influence, honestly. So
yeah,
we've gone to so many different restaurants, and eaten a lot of good food. We've gone hiking too, but we should probably improve the balance there. So
I love it. Well, that's what I would be doing too. The first thing I would do if I moved. Yeah. Actually, that is the first thing I did. So when I moved to Phoenix, so I lived in Phoenix for about 3 years, and literally the day I moved there, I got in the car and I heard that my favorite sandwich shop, it's a chain, it's a small chain, but my favorite sandwich shop was actually nearby. And I didn't know, so I'm terrible with directions. I'm terrible with time, like all of that. I'm really bad at judging those things. And I got in the car and I thought that it was nearby, and I ended up driving about an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And I got, the GPS was like, okay, here's the sandwich shop, and I couldn't find it. So I turned around and I went back. Obviously I wasn't in Phoenix anymore because I drove an hour. I turned around, drove back to Phoenix, and I found a Whataburger. And so I ate Whataburger.
There you go.
Just a little taste of home, but it was,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Lawrence is he's really mourning the fact that there's no Whataburger here. So
is there not?
No,
that's terrible. I'm sorry. What is the substitute?
I don't know yet. We need to find it. We haven't explored burgers yet. So that's what we need to do.
Yeah. Put it on your list. That's so funny. Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about purity, and I'm really excited for this conversation because I feel like a lot of girls there's this idea that girls don't really struggle or shouldn't struggle with purity. And I think that's just not true. Like girls are human beings too. And all human beings struggle with purity. And so I'm really excited for this conversation, but I also understand that some people listening may feel a little awkward about this conversation. And so just like, before you go on stage, you might have done this. You gotta get all your nerves out, kind of shake them out. So right now, we're gonna shake all the awkward out together, and we're gonna share just we're gonna get all the awkward out of the way. So we're gonna share, Makayla, 2 awkward things, you and I. So 4 total. You, then me, then you, then me, and we're gonna these are just generic awkward things. These don't. I don't know what yours are. We haven't talked about this, so. So
I have a lot of personal examples.
Do you?
I guess my life is just awkward. I don't know.
I totally understand that. Okay, so what is your first awkward thing? And maybe we can laugh together too.
Okay, well, here's just a little personal story. I remember going to a conference. This is like a PK awkward moment, okay? I went to a conference, but it was just me and my dad because my mom was at her day job or whatever. So me and my dad went there, and this pastor came up and was talking to him and, talking about what pastors talk about, giving each other their life story, their testimony, all that. And so my dad's telling him, and I went to A&M University, and I mean, we're 15 minutes into the conversation at this point, and the pastor is like, oh, is that where you met this pretty lady? And I was like, wait, what is he? And then I realized he thinks I'm married to my dad. And I was so weirded out. I didn't even say anything. My dad was just like, oh, no, Tom, this is not my wife. Yeah. So I think I just went to the restroom after that and cried.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And
good times.
Awkward and hilarious. Okay, so here's one. Mine is actually very similar to yours. So funny how that happened. But I went to, my dad and I went to go get tested for COVID. We thought we might have been exposed. And so we got our tests, and we went into separate rooms, to get tested and all the things, which, by the way, talk about awkward things. Did you ever get tested?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I got tested twice. And the second time I got tested, it was the most awkward experience. First of all, just getting tested, because they literally take this stick and they shove it up your nose.
Oh my gosh.
It feels like it's going to your brain. I'm sure it didn't touch my brain. That That would probably be really messed up. But the doctor takes it out of your nose. This is so gross. And then your eyes are, he told me beforehand that this was going to happen, but your eyes are watering, your nose is running, you're coughing, like it's very uncomfortable. And he looks at me and he says, okay, because he has to do it on both nostrils. He says, okay, are you ready for the next one? And I'm like, it's not really something you could be ready for. Like,
yeah.
So I was just like, I was still choking. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So that was awkward, first of all. But then, second of all, so I'm leaving and I got done before my dad. And so I'm walking out, and one of the nurses looks at me and she says something similar to what happened to you, where she's like, oh, good job, you're COVID free. She said, we'll send your better half out in just a minute.
Oh no.
And I just like immediately after she said that, I removed eye contact from her and just walked out of the doctor's office. I was like, I'm not even gonna say anything. This is so awkward. But I guess understandable jump, because we have the same last name on our form. Like, I don't know.
But like, is that really enough?
No, not really. Not really.
This man clearly is twice my age.
Yes.
Which, doesn't stop some women, but.
Well, and your dad he's a little grayer, right?
He is, yeah.
Yeah. So my dad is completely bald. No hair, no beard, nothing. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's pretty funny. Okay, what's your
very awkward.
Very awkward. What's your second awkward thing?
Well, this is not really an awkward thing for me, but it's an awkward thing for the church I just visited. And I'm sure that you will feel the awkwardness of this, because you've probably been over a service before where you plan something amazing and then it just does not work out. But on Easter, I visited this. It's a really big church here and it's amazing. I love the church. But they did this creative element, and it's like the biggest one, like the message had to do with it. The worship had to do with it, like everything, right?
Yeah.
And so the pastor gets up and he's like, I want you guys to just text this number and tell me what you saw the Lord do in your life this past year. And so everybody's like texting in, and he's like, during this next song, it's going to pop up all over the screen. And these are like huge LEDs, so you're just like, wow, how are they even doing this? And so he prays, and the lights are soft. It's such a tender moment. And then one pops up. It's like, Jesus, I saw the Lord save my marriage. I saw the Lord heal me of cancer, right? It's just those two in like weird places on the screen. And then you see like the clicker, the mouse, just like go like this, swirling around the entire LED screen.
No.
Ouch. And then it just goes black.
No.
And so they continue singing the song, and it feels like ages, And then the pastor gets back up and he's like, well, church, the computer crashed. So tell everyone the old fashioned way. Just turn around and tell them how you saw the Lord. But, oh man, I felt so bad for them.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
It also, it's awkward, it's sad, but it also in a terrible way makes me feel so much better.
Right.
Because I do help lead our creative team at my church. And I'll tell you what, those computers are no joke. Like sometimes there are things that you can do to fix them, but sometimes there's just like nothing you can do. Like computers crash, and they just crash. It's terrible. Yeah. That's so funny. What an awkward moment in the service. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. Okay. So I was going back and forth on what awkward thing I was going to share here. And I think the one I'm going to share is this. So we did a live recording of Church Girl Gang podcast a few episodes back, and it was awesome. We had so much fun. It was actually at a conference called Chosen Conference. Oh, you've been to Chosen Conference. You sang at Chosen Conference. That was so fun. I wish you could have been there for this one. It was so great.
It looked so awesome.
It just like, I can't even tell you, it gets better and better every year. So maybe this next year I don't know, maybe we can get you on a flight and get you back for it. That would be really fun.
That'd be so fun.
So we did a live recording of Church Girl Gang, and I was so pumped for the conference because it was like a disco 70s theme. And I literally ordered this blue eyeshadow for this conference because I thought this is going to be awesome, like so retro. And I've always wanted to do blue eyeshadow, and I didn't test it out beforehand or anything. And I got up super early that morning for the conference. And so I don't know, like, if you have the same problem I do, it takes me a little while to wake up. And so I was I'm putting my makeup on, I'm putting the blue eyeshadow on, I'm trying to make it work. And I look in the mirror, of course I'm like half asleep probably, but I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I look amazing. And then, we go through half a day of the conference. I don't even look in the mirror again. We go to record live recording of Church Girl Gang, and there's like a photographer in there. She's taking pictures, which is really fun. and then even later, I did like a Instagram live because we were doing another giveaway for Church Girl Gang, and I've got the blue eyeshadow on, and I look back on that Instagram live. That's the first time I've really seen myself, and I'm like, you know what? That blue eyeshadow makes me look like a straight up clown. Like I looked like a total clown. And actually, if you look at our you'd have to look on my Instagram. But if you look on my Instagram of pictures from that live recording, I did not really post any pictures where you could see my face very well.
Oh no.
I tried to just post pictures of other girls because I was like, they did great. They can be the stars because I looked whack. And no one really told me until the conference was almost over. It was probably about 3 p.m. when someone looked at me and said, yeah, that doesn't look very, very good.
Oh, what a bummer.
Yeah, I know. And I was like so excited too. Anyway, that was my awkward thing. I don't know if that's ever happened to you where you think you look amazing and then someone shows you how not amazing you look and you're like, whoops. Awkward.
Yeah. Very relatable.
Okay, well, now that we've gotten we've shook. I don't know. I was about to say we got all the awkward out of the way, and then I did that. We're getting all the awkward out of the way. We're going to talk about purity. We're going to talk about sexual purity. But one thing that I feel like people may be asking is purity outdated? Does purity even matter anymore? What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely the world would say it is, that it's outdated. Like, I think we see that with, even how the world's kind of responding to the Bible right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of referred to as, the book written 2,000 years ago.
Right.
And so there's kind of this just chronological snobbery going on. And it's like, wait, if I wrote something 5 minutes ago, is it outdated now? Or like, what if it was 10 years ago? Is that outdated?
Right.
And so, I think that purity is kind of looked at as oppression right now. Mm-hmm. It's looked at as anything really that is restricting, that causes you to have standards.
Right.
Because we live in a world where absolute truth is kind of
it's dead.
Not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but for the Christians, I think purity is like so on trend right now. It's the trendiest thing. Like even if you just look at Hollywood, right? Mm-hmm. I think of this film. I think it's called Unplanned, but it's about abortion.
Oh, yes.
And it was actually banned by an entire country. I can't remember what country it was.
Oh, really?
But yeah, they banned the film. But you don't see any countries banning just regular films with nudity or, right. any like risque sexual stuff. And it's kind of like, well, purity is becoming the edgy thing. Mm-hmm. It's becoming the offensive thing because Hollywood can't really get any more edgy. Like you can only take so many clothes off.
Right.
Right.
And
so, I think purity in 2021 is the most trendy, edgy. It's like the cutting edge thing right now, you know?
Yeah, that's okay. It's time to bring purity back.
Yes.
Yes, I love it. I think that's a really interesting point you make, because I've actually heard some say that like culture isn't just progressing, but that we're actually entering an age of like anti-culture, where nothing really matters. There's no solid ground to stand on anymore. And I think the thing about purity that really trips people up is that purity is based on absolute truth. Like, in order for us to say that purity is important, we have to have a standard for our lives that that we're saying is not just a standard for me or a standard for you, but actually this is the standard. And so I think that's a really interesting point that you're making. Can you help us? I'm gonna skip around a little bit, Makayla. Can you help us just give us a definition of purity? Just talking about having a solid ground to stand on. What does purity actually mean?
So I love this organization called Moral Revolution. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I mean, this organization has helped me the most. I love consuming their books, and they have podcasts, all kinds of content, their Instagram account. But their definition of purity is probably the one I repeat the most. And it says, purity is not virginity, but it's being free of guilt and shame. And man, like, that sentence is actually the sentence that was the turning point for me, that really made it sink in. I think before that point, I was just trying to correct behaviors. And I didn't realize, like, oh, you know, my issues, this is just the symptom of the problem. So the problem isn't that I'm watching porn. That's actually not the issue. The issue is that I'm carrying so much shame inside of me. Yeah. And that's triggering more porn use, you know? Yeah. And so I just love that. Like, when you find yourself completely, you know, stripped from shame and full of the identity that God's given you as a daughter. Yeah. I mean, that's when purity, true purity, is entered into, you know? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so, so good. So you mentioned already a little bit about your struggles with purity. I feel like a lot of girls, and I mentioned this right at the top, but a lot of girls feel like that girls in general are not allowed to struggle with purity. I think especially in Christian culture, that's kind of the feeling. Makayla, do girls struggle with purity? Is that a thing? Well, this girl has. Yeah, I think totally. I mean, it's something that really added more shame to me, is just thinking, you know, okay, so I see these men's purity groups. Where do the women go? Yeah. Am I allowed to struggle with this? I think I also kind of told myself, are you just like really weird? Like, are you just very ill or something that this is something that you struggle with? But what I've learned is that, you know, well, statistically, even women tend to struggle just as much as men with sexual sin, but it just shows up different. And I think it's more in your face for a man, whereas it's a quieter struggle for a woman. So, for example, and I've just learned this within the past year, how differently men and women struggle. I just thought everybody struggled the way that I did. But for a man, he can be easily triggered because they're so visual. So for them, you know, a picture of somebody not dressed is enough. Yeah. Whereas for most women, what they're after is like the romantic literature, you know, like 50 Shades of Grey type stuff, which, you know, they call mommy porn. Yeah. And so I think for women, sometimes you could say that men struggle more because they're more easily triggered, but I could also argue women struggle more because they're in the corner reading a book and it looks harmless.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's all the same fantasy. And, but what women are drawn to is the emotional side of it. And so the visual is enough for a man, for most men. I don't want to make blanket statements, but,
right.
And then for most women, it's like they're drawn to the romantic story and, oh, wow, like he met her needs like this. And so that's why for a lot of women, chick flicks can be triggers, even ones without sex scenes or anything, because you leave feeling like, oh, I want someone to love me like that. And then porn is this false sense of intimacy. And not only that, but it's like you have this intimate moment, but also there's no chance that you could be rejected because it's one-sided. Yeah. And so in a way, like for men, they usually will go to porn because they struggle with rejection. So like if a woman rejects a man, then that's usually a big trigger for him to just go ahead and go watch porn because the woman on the screen won't reject me. Right. So that's super I definitely think, women totally struggle. Just like men, we all have sex drives. We just struggle differently. Yeah, absolutely. So. I've been called out many times when people have seen me watching it's Shonda Rhimes, anything by Shonda Rhimes. I've watched some of those shows, and I've had, like, I'm thinking specifically my sister. My sister walks into the room. She says, "Are you watching porn?" And I'm thinking, this is not labeled porn. This is on TV. Yeah. Yeah. But it really. That moment, that's a very specific moment for me when it was like a gut check for me where I was like, right, maybe I shouldn't be watching this, Yeah. Maybe not just because it's on TV doesn't mean that it's for me. Just because it has a safer cover, like a book or something like that, or maybe it's a podcast or whatever it is, just because it looks safer doesn't mean that it's actually something that I should be consuming. Yeah. So that's really cool. I'm glad that you brought that up. The other thing that I have, I feel like I've seen a lot in, just in Christian culture, even though, we talk about at church, lots of pastors talk about sex and God's plan for sex and that kind of thing. But I think a lot of those messages can often at least feel like they're supposed to be for the men in the room, which they're not, but I feel like as ladies, there's kind of this idea that we're not supposed to, maybe not supposed to have sex drives or something like that. And I think that's a danger to us if we let that idea into our hearts, because God made us all human beings to be sexual beings. He said, go forth and multiply, and that was for all the people, including women, right? And so I think if we ignore that, if we put that part of ourselves aside and we push it away and we say, well, that's not supposed to be for me, well, you're suppressing something that's just gonna bubble up under the surface. We've got to acknowledge that part of ourselves and actually hand it over to God, right? Yeah. I love that because, there's two extremes, and I think both are equally sad. So you have maybe the promiscuous Christian girl who is running around just sleeping with people, trying to get their needs met and not managing their sexuality well. Mm-hmm. And then you have the legalistic Christian girl or religious-minded, whatever you want to call it, who gets married and doesn't enjoy sex with her spouse because she thinks it's bad, because she's suppressed that part of herself. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that's great what you're saying, because we have to learn how to balance that as women.
Well, that was a fantastic conversation with Makayla, and I'm just so glad that she got to come on and share that. And this is now a 2-part episode because there was just so much content going into that. So y'all come back next week for the rest of that conversation. But Makayla, since we have you here, we have a tradition on this podcast of doing what we call a something fun. And something fun is just something that we can all celebrate together. And just a reminder that if you have a something fun that you want us to talk about, to share, and to celebrate with you on this podcast, then you can share it with us on our Facebook page, on our Instagram, slide into my DMs, however you can get that to us. We'll take it and we'll share it on this podcast, and we'll share it with everyone listening, and we'll celebrate together. But today, Makayla is sharing her something fun. So, Makayla, what can we celebrate with you right now?
Okay, so it's Friday, which means I have a date tonight. So I'm really excited about that. I know. Super excited.
So good.
Or it started this thing called Fridates.
Fridates.
You know? Get it? Yeah. So I don't know where we're going. But hopefully, you know, as we've both expressed, hot chicken is the way to our hearts. So hopefully,
yeah,
I'll be having some hot chicken tonight.
Yes, I'm celebrating with you right now and celebrating over hot chicken. I love it. Actually, Fridays are, yes, we're recording today on a Friday. So just a few days before this episode comes out. And Fridays, this is a really silly thing for me to share, Makayla. Fridays are my cheat days. So I eat pretty healthy. I actually have started over the past few weeks doing some strength training, which doesn't mean much because I am not very strong, like at all. But my dad he's a, I don't know how you say, like he's a gym guy. And so he's kind of been my personal trainer, which has been really fun. But I feel like I also love, I'm bringing this all together in a second, but I love The Rock. Okay, I don't know if that's a weird thing, but I love Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He's so cool to me, and I follow him on Instagram, and he always posts his like cheat meals, and I'm just like obsessed because he like eats like piles of food, like just plates and plates of food, and I think it's awesome. And so on Fridays, anyway, he can do that because he's like huge.
Right.
But on Fridays, I just kind of pretend like
you're The Rock?
Like I'm The Rock.
Well, that's what I'm doing tonight, so I'm gonna steal that.
Like, I don't actually eat that much food, but if I could, I totally would. And I just cheat meals on Fridays. Anyway, so I'm glad it's Friday. I hope you get to eat lots and lots of hot chicken. Well, that was today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. And right now, we are going to announce the winners of our Church Girl Gang pin giveaway. So if you're listening right now, our winners for this pin is Mary, Jackie, Madison, and Bethany. I'm going to slide into your DMs. I am going to get your address and make sure that you get one of these Church Girl Gang pins. These are so cool. We actually give these to all of our guests. So actually, Makayla, you're going to get one of these too. But this is so fun. But just a little exclusive pin and a way to say thanks for listening to all of you who joined in on our little giveaway. So that's really exciting. Well, just a reminder before we go, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube or you are listening to the audio version on whatever podcasting platform you're on. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to smash the like button, as they say, or leave us a 5-star review. And the reason this is important is not just because we want to boost likes and reviews and subscribes and all of those things, because that actually helps us get Church Girl Gang out to more girls. And so they're going to hear important conversations just like this that we had today. So be sure to subscribe to what's going on here at Church Girl Gang. And you can find me on any social media platform at Kenzie Carisse, and I would love to connect with you or connect with you on our Church Girl Gang social media pages as well. But that'll all be linked down below. With that being said, have a fantastic week, Church Girl. We'll talk to you soon.